The right number plate decal for the 2016 to 2019 Husqvarna is tricky, especially this one since it's made out of one piece. If you have our templates you will have this one, but you might also have another one that is divided into 2 or 3 pieces. While these might be a bit easier to install, it won't look as good because of the seams. I start by placing the decals on the plastics to see if it's the correct one and how it lines up. Since it's so big, I will use painter's tape to hold it in place once I have positioned it, instead of removing a part of the backing first. When it is taped into place, I will resume my normal method by removing a bit of the backing paper and locking the decal in place. I will use a knife to cut the backing paper to prevent bits of paper falling onto the adhesive. I start in the middle and use quite some pressure to apply the decal so it doesn't move when I remove more of the backing paper. Now that I'm happy with the positioning, I remove the painter's tape and will remove another piece of the backing, stopping at the long neck. This is the most difficult part of the install since the large surface will stick down easy and trap air, so take your time doing this and don't be afraid to peel the decal back up if there are large air bubbles underneath. Use broad overlapping strokes and a lot of pressure. I kept a bit of the backing paper on here at the end so that it wouldn't stick. It's a narrower bit of the decal but should be aligned properly as well. The more backing you remove in one go, the more difficult the install becomes. I now move over to the lower part of the decal. Since the plastic curves and dips here, the decal will start to bunch up since there is too much vinyl for too little space. I'm still able to smooth out most part of the wrinkles, but they are now too big and too rigid to smooth without using heat. By warming them with the heat gun, they get soft and can easily be smoothed out. Don't use too much pressure now, since that will cause the vinyl to stretch and leave adhesive marks because the glue will get soft and bunch up underneath the vinyl. Start by doing the biggest ones first and then try to keep them all at the same size before continuing. This will make sure that the vinyl stretches evenly. Now comes the tricky part. On top there is a lot of excess vinyl because of the shape of the plastics. You won't be able to smooth this out without keeping the vinyl tight. I will also need heat to soften it. While this stretches the vinyl, I try to do this as evenly as possible to keep the stress to a minimum. Since it still has a lot of plastic to grip on, it won't lift quickly, but if done wrong, can still happen. This happens usually when the vinyl has shrunk or gets warm again, like on a hot day. The most difficult part is done now and the rest should be easy in comparison. The long neck of this decal is now easy to apply, but do make sure you align it properly. Use broad strokes to apply it and do the edges last with heat to prevent air from getting trapped. The final step is to soften out the edges and make sure that there's no trapped air. I had a few bubbles here, so instead of poking holes in all of them, I'm lifting up a part of the decal to remove them. When pushing a decal down into a recess or over an edge with a curve like this, start in the middle to borrow some of the stretch from the straight edges. This will make sure that there is less stress in the recess, which will be beneficial for the lifespan of the decal. Use a lot of heat where there might be stress in the decal to remove the memory. While this is difficult with a vinyl and laminate like this, heat will still help. If you do not post heat your graphics, or at least the edges, it will fail over time. Lastly, remove any bubbles caused by the heat and clean up any adhesive that might got onto the graphics with a little bit of brake cleaner and you are done.